Well, hello everyone. Today we have with us Dr. Arindam Mandal from Siena University. He is Professor of Economics as well as Associate Dean of Business School and also a good friend. I have known him for a very long period of time. Arindam, thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation. Really happy to have you for the next 30 minutes or so.
Thank you, Shimanti. It's a pleasure and thanks for hosting me.
Great, great. If people don't know, I should, this is Arindam. I really wanted to kind of, I don't know, publicly thank you for all the professional advice that you've given me over the years. And you know that it's been professionally really beneficial. So thank you again.
I'm glad, and I learned a lot of things from you as well. Like it's been good conversation. I think our professional journey kind of started around the same time.
That's right.
So
That's
yeah,
right. So to get started, do you want to share a fun fact with the audience?
fun fact about economics or non-economics.
It's up to you.
Okay, let me start with the non-economics because I'm sure we'll be doing a lot of economics, right? So, I'm an avid table tennis player. I play
Oh,
competitively at least twice or thrice a week,
oh
and
my.
I'm part of two clubs here, and also
Fabulous.
I'm nationally ranked. I'm like advanced intermediate level. So yes, when I'm not doing economics or not doing administrative work, not teaching, table tennis takes a priority in my life.
I did not know that. Awesome. And what about economics? Fun fact.
Oh, fun fact about economics. I'm not sure if it's a fun fact, but I'm a more kind of holistic economist, right? I want to live a normal life surrounding economics. And that's what I try to do. That's what I've tried to do professionally. So I have a lot of interest within economics, and it's something interesting. I try to read them, and I try to go over at least five different newspapers every day just to get a sense of things. And I'm interested in a lot of different topics, and my research interests have evolved over time. So is my teaching interest as well.
That's really important because it kind of, so economics is a social science, and oftentimes, we draw our inspiration from things that are happening around us.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes, exactly. Great. My next question for you, my second question is, you've talked about that, you have varied professional interests. So can you share something about an interesting project that you have worked in and, how that has helped you grow as a scholar?
Okay, so as I said, my interest within economics has evolved over time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just to give a background, so my graduate work was completely theoretical. So, it was labor search theory. I'm a labor economist by training, especially macro labor. And those of you who are in the profession and doing a lot of theory work, and you might agree with me, the publishing in hard theory is often more difficult or relatively more difficult than doing more applied work. And that's true, especially if you are working in a more teaching focused institutions like Siena. So my first 5, 6 years, I tried to work on my dissertations, try to get it published. At one time, I realized like things were evolving fast because mind you, I graduated in 2009, which was right after the financial crisis. By that time, whole business cycle was out of fashion. But I was trained in real business cycle. I was trained in those kind of models and all those things. So interestingly, in 2016, I was on sabbatical. I took a year-long sabbatical, and that's also the time when Trump was campaigning for the first time. And it's my friend and my good friend from Bard College and I were kind of sitting over coffee, and we were wondering why Trump is so much going against media, right? And why working people kind of like buying into those narratives. So that led to our a research idea that developed out of those conversation about understanding the effects of media and labor rights. Now, I'm a labor economist. I have a lot of interest in labor rights. I was a union organizer for some time in my graduate school, but I never been able to figure out how to understand the labor rights because that's a more uh, it's not well defined, right? Interestingly, I first started doing some research, background research about labor rights. It's around 2016, around that time. And in 2015, thankfully, Cambridge University came up with an index of labor rights across countries. It was a DGR measure. That means they looked into a set of almost 130 countries, not 130, I think 70 or 80 countries. And they looked into the constitution and they tried to put together an index on labor rights as it is in the constitution. So that led to our very interesting project, which is ultimately published in the Applied Economic Letters, where we try to understand media freedom and its effects on labor rights.
Wow.
And what we found in our research was that it's a cross-country study, and we figured out that actually free media it actually led to deterioration of labor rights across the countries. And there's a reason behind it. How did we define free media? Free media's definition was that it's outside of the control of the government, but that doesn't mean that media is not controlled by the big corporations. And now with all those things that's going on with CBS News and
Mhm.
CBS and all these things, you kind of like coming back because if media is controlled by a handful of people, though quote unquote it's a free media because it's not controlled by the government,
That's right.
but they are not kind of like very much bringing up the day-to-day working class issues. And
Hmm.
that's why, in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, that there's a lot of lack of faith in free media by the people from working class. So that led to the whole research idea about labor rights and what affects labor rights and how labor rights affect different socioeconomic outcomes. So that's how kind of like it's been my research project for the last 10 years. I have published several papers on that area, and it's very interesting space to work because it's very interdisciplinary. So we reference to not only economics, we reference to political science, sociology, health sciences. One of the work we are working right now about the relationship between the health outcomes and labor rights, especially how labor rights affects suicides. Uh, and those kind of work we are doing right now. So my whole focus right now is on labor rights and related issues.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's I it's really noteworthy because you took your skills and kind of repackaged it
Mm.
and evolved along the way to set up a completely different research program. So,
Yeah.
and so interesting and relevant to what the kind of world
Mm.
that we are in. So, very
Mm.
socio-economically relevant. So, that's awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Great. My next question is, you have extensive teaching experience. Can you share something about how you see teaching evolving in the current age of AI and falling college enrollment?
Okay. So let me talk about the little bit of falling college enrollment, then I come to the AI part. I think, yes, there's some pressure on colleges, especially changing demographics. We have less number of students graduating from high school. Obviously, we will have less number of students coming to college, but also it's a value proposition, right? If they come to college, what kind of value we are providing? And
Hmm.
and I think it's not that we don't have enough number of students who are not interested in going to college, but many of them are not seeing enough value of why they should go to college, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's where we need to evolve, and that's where I'm going to bring in AI. I know in academia, a lot of people are concerned about AI. In my own institution, there's a lot of conversation going about what's the best use of AI and how to use it. But I see it in a very positive note because I am very upfront in terms of uh, discussing this issue with students. I've asked them like how they're using it, and many of my students have taught how to effectively use it because Sienna provides access to Copilot, that's and also Gemini and also Notebook LM. This is that so the data is safe by the
Hmm.
contract that Sienna has with all these companies, AI companies. But it's very interesting, like students are using it very effectively. So one of my students this last semester, he actually took all my lecture slides, even class notes and everything, and he was uploading them in Notebook LM, and he was creating his own kind of like slides, flashcards, and those kind of things. And those were very effective way of learning. But the biggest innovation, in my opinion, that AI is going to do that like think about one of the biggest challenges when you are going into classroom. Often you don't have enough time to integrate some kind of applications of the concepts that you are doing. Uh, so with AI, with Notebook LM and all this stuff, we can actually run a flipped classroom much more easily. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so we can kind of like, we can assign some work in advance, and then we can use the classroom experience as a more application and more engaging and more experiential. Yes, it requires a lot of work. And there also AI is helping me because I have used
Right.
AI to kind of rework on my lecture notes, rework on my homework. And AI for me is like a very efficient graduate worker, right? So that's how I'm using it. So as a smaller institution, we don't have graduate workers, we don't have
That's
graduate
right.
students. So AI is kind of like helping me to be a better teacher because this is something I can use. Like it can help me to draft things or rework the things that I already have done. And but what I want to caution people on one thing, so to use AI effectively, you first should know what you really want it out of it. Otherwise, you can go through a rabbit hole and then it can create a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
But and I think it needs to be an open conversation with your student body. That's what I'm doing. I tell them when I have used AI to create certain assignments, I tell them I'm doing it. This is how I've done it. And it's not that I just tell it to generate something, then I spend solid for as 45 minutes to 1 hour to rework on it to make it better.
That's right.
I could have done the same work. It would have taken 3 hours. Now I can get it done quicker and faster. And and one thing I always tell my students, if you're using AI, last thing you should do, you generate something and you're just submitting it. Make sure you add some value to whatever the product you're getting out of the AI. Because the day, if your work can do AI, what's the need for you? Your need is like, and your requirement is that you have to improve on all the outputs that you are getting from AI.
That's correct. Absolutely. I agree with you
Mm.
completely. And on that note, I have started taken baby steps of using AI. So, and I can automate, I do see the efficiency
Mm.
gains
Yep.
for sure, for sure. Exactly. Moving on, another teaching focused question, if you will. And excuse me, your experience as an academic has been in a liberal arts college
Mm.
setting and now university
Mm.
setting. So, can you share with our audience some of the key features of a liberal arts education setting that attracted you to this professional role?
Mm. Yeah. So for me, liberal arts, obviously, there's a lot of definition of liberal arts, but one definition which I like is that it's
Uh-huh.
a holistic education, right? That's what we focus on. And it focuses on perhaps by holistic, they mean it's the ability to think critically, ability to communicate well, ability to uh, solve problems. Like these are the three specific skills that we try to encourage. And these are general skills, right? There's a
Right.
focus is on a transfer of this kind of like skills into different sphere of life. But unfortunately or fortunately, whatever way you want to see it, but modern education, especially since I would say 2000 onwards, gotten more vocational and more uh, specific skill focused. The problem with that education that we are realizing that if your skills are not transferable, technology is going to evolve. How do you make sure that you can transfer those general skills into specific occupation? Because whatever the jobs is here today perhaps will not exist another 10 years, and there will be new kind of jobs will
That's
emerge.
right.
But the only way you can survive and do well if you have those general skills, transferable skills like problem solving, critical thinking, and communications. And that's what we do, especially in a teaching focused institution like Siena, we have a liberal arts core. And whole idea here is that students should be walking out not only with some very field specific knowledge, but also some general uh, knowledge, transferable skills, which they can apply in all spheres of life. And yes, that may not be very successful always in the short run, but in the long run, it always pays off. And that's liberal. And I think a lot of bigger universities also have core is very liberal arts, and that's the
Mhm.
focus is on. And that's what we try to kind of like encourage in our students. And that attracted me. As I said, I'm a generalist. I have a lot of varied interests. I read a lot. And that also sustains me because it's a good match for me because I can always go around and talk with different things. And students also develop this varied ideas, and we kind of like have a chance to kind of like bounce back ideas, which I really really enjoy in the smaller classroom setup with like less, perhaps most classes are less than 18 in at Siena. And that helps a lot in terms of sustaining my own intellectual curiosity and also developing intellectual curiosity among my students.
Mhm. You're absolutely right. And those are those three skills: communication, problem solving, and critical
Mm,
analysis, critical
mm,
thinking.
mm,
And that is
mm.
true across the board. And you're right, those are skills that never go away.
Nope,
And if you
never.
know that, then I tell my kids that all the time. Is that that's right? How can you solve the problem? And now I've started talking about feasible versus non-feasible solution, and mostly they whine when they hear that. It's like I solved the problem for you. What is this feasible stuff? But that aside, I'm going to switching gears a little bit, I
Sure.
wanted to ask you about your experiences in working in academic administration. What appealed to you about that position? Can you share something with us?
Okay. So when I took up this position in associate dean 2 years ago, I got more condolences than congratulations. Yeah. And those who are transitioning from a faculty line to a more administrative work, I can see that. Having said that, so I served as a department chair before.
Oh, that's
Uh,
right.
yeah, but department chair, at least in CNI, is a more faculty focus, right? It's not that level of administrative work. Yes, it involves some, but there's not a strategic initiative. It's not a strategy related work. But in the associate dean in the School of Business, especially in an AACSB accredited School of Business, it matters a lot, right? So one best piece of advice I got from one of my senior faculty members was that when you serve in an administrative position, at least in initial years, you should take it as a service, nothing more. Because no matter, obviously, as an administrator, you get some compensation, and believe it or not, compensation is not going to make up for the amount of work you put in, right? It will never make up. So if you don't have that idea of serving your institution and being a part of this positive change, it's very difficult to serve in these positions because these are very demanding. These are uh, often compensated, but not up to the level where perhaps you can think about that uh, the marginal benefits of being an administration is higher than the marginal cost. And trust me, marginal cost is way, way more than the marginal benefit here. But when I think about it from the lens of service and I'm serving my institution, it makes it much more bearable, much more
Mhm.
interesting. And also it helps you to kind of like, think in a broader window because as I go up in the administrative the chain, my window is wider, getting wider and wider. So I'm more thinking about at the School of Business level, how we can strategically place it, what we can do strategically. So we are thinking a lot about strategies and make sure that we are pushing forward. And it's a very forward thinking role. And I'm really enjoying that part. It's not about paper pushing, it's more about taking the institution in a direction which is meaningful for our stakeholders, which is our faculty, our students, and the broader institutions.
So you have mentioned about having a service orientation
Mm, mm,
to be able to succeed or
mm,
start in an
mm,
administrative role.
mm.
Are there any other traits that you would like to share that might be so if somebody is thinking about a faculty
Yeah.
an administrative role, what are some of the traits that they should cultivate?
Okay. Uh, I think first thing before you serve in a regular administrative position, you should consider serving in your shared governance processes in your institution. Serve in a faculty committee, serve in a faculty senate. So that will give you the idea about how an institution is working. That will
Right.
also help you to understand from a very faculty perspective because most of these positions requires you to be a faculty. So that should be the starting point. I serve in my handbook committee and the faculty committee for 5 years, more than 5 years. That was the first window I got into like kind of like how the institution works.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing, you need to be very clear about your role, right? You are not taking it up to furthering your own professional goals only. You are taking it up on behalf of your faculty members,
That's
especially,
right.
and you are serving the faculty and the students because they are our key stakeholders, and you have to be very mindful of that. And the third practical thing I'm going to tell you, uh, you need to manage your time very well because these things can get really overwhelming. You should know where to stop. And sometimes you just to put a hard stop. That's it. And I'm going to stop it here. I'm going to take a break and then kind of think about the issues because the issue with many administrative positions, like in a dean's office or even a provost office, any cases that coming to that office are much more complicated, so you have to look it through from a very different angles. You have to give it time to look at all the nuances because
Mm-hmm.
once you take a decision on this, that's become the precedent. So you cannot
That's
move
right.
it from. So you have to be very, very careful about what you do and how you do it.
That's yeah, that's a very important point. Because if yes,
Mm.
exactly. On that note, can you give an example of, some or maybe what's the most one of the most enriching and impactful aspects of your administrative work? Can you give
Oh,
an
I'm in the
example?
yeah, I'm in the forefront of change, right?
I
Uh,
love that.
so if I because I'm part of the whole strategy process, at least in the School of Business, we have a strategic plan. I'm part of that. I'm kind of like supporting it in the all the ways, uh, and because I'm in the forefront of change, that makes it very, very exciting. And I can give you one specific example. So starting fall 2025, we required any students joining the School of Business starting fall 2025, and any freshman students, they are required to have experiential learning. Experiential learning, we define it broadly. It's not limited to only internships. It could be done through independent research. It could be done through community engaged classes. So there's a very wide array of options. But to implement that process, you have to have policies, right? And that was the challenging part because how do you create that policies? And we spent solid almost a year to kind of like bring in different stakeholders, having a conversation and putting all the information together and come up with a policy which is effective and kind of like foolproof because you don't want to end up with the situations where uh, students are having a lot of issues or not providing
Right,
right kind of experiences.
right.
And I'm very proud of the fact that we have been able to implement this in the Siena. And now all the school, starting fall 2026, this year, any School of Business students were coming into Siena, they have to have a experiential learning before they graduate. It's now becoming part of a requirement. at the School of Business only, not at the institutional level. And this is something I'm in forefront of it, like I'm like in making changes. Second thing that we did about strategic plan, so we are going for a bridge plan for, so our current strategic plan is sunsetting or already sunsetted in this spring. And because of various reasons, we are going for a bridge plan, 2-year bridge plan, and the focus is on student success. But again, what do we mean by student success? How do we, is it just a job or is it not something more than that? And I was able to basically bring in faculty members, and especially some of the senior faculty members who have spent 40 years in this profession, to bring their perspective. And what came through was a very holistic approach to student success, because we want to define success not by just mere job, because job is one aspect of this,
That's right.
but also we let students to define what success means. For some students, success means going to a graduate school. For some students, success means working for a not-for-profit. For some students, success
Mhm.
means going abroad and teaching English as a second language.
That's
So,
right.
and then but what's going to happen next is that because student success is such an important component of a strategic plan, we are creating these policies where we'll be supporting those initiatives. And that starts with advising. How can we make advising more effective and meaningful for our students? So that's starting a broader conversation. And I'm excited to report that I'm in the middle of those things. So that's very exciting.
Thank you so much for
Mhm.
sharing all of this with us. I'm sure people tuning in, especially the administrators in our audience, will definitely either kind of nod along and agree that
Yeah.
hey, we are doing the same thing, or
Yeah.
take pointers. So
Yeah.
that is great. Um, my next question to you is that you are currently also serving as an editor of the New York Economic Review. So, what drew you to this position, and what are some of the rewards of this position which justify all the hard work that you surely are putting in?
Yes, yeah. So just to give a background of New York Economic Review, it is perhaps one of the oldest journal in this country. It's been publication for at least I know 60, 70 years. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, but over time, for various reasons, this journal doesn't have a lot of prominence right now. Uh, so one of the tasks that's came on me, and I kind of like, again, I volunteer to serve in this role. It's not with a lot of support from the New York State Economic Association. It's their flagship journal, and main thing is that it's a older journal with lot of history. If
Right.
I can make it more effective and more visible,
Hmm.
and also it's a general interest journal, and I'm also generalist in the field of economics. So we accept any kind of good, serious economics work, uh, is and we try to do basically making sure that the work is meaningful to our audience, to whoever is reading the journal. So we get very interesting papers, a lot of interesting work being done, and also we encourage people to submit short form papers, as in under 1,500 words kind of papers, so that because I think there's a lot of room for those kind of work. Uh, because right now in our profession there are, I know, only three journals are doing it: Economic Letters, Applied Economic Letters, and Economic Bulletin. uh, but that also creates more opportunities for the people who are submitting in these journals. And another thing, as a scholar, one problem I faced when I was kind of like more junior faculty, I was not sure about the timeline, how long it's going to take to publish a paper. So we make sure that if any paper is coming in by end of March every year, so we just publish one issue a year, we at least try to get done the first review by end of July. So at least that's what I'm trying to do. Are we 100% successful? No, but I would say almost 90% of the papers are reviewed by July, so that they know, authors know, if they're in the process of at least getting a revise or resubmit, or if they have to consider other journals or better fit for their work. So I think that's what we're trying to do, just to make sure
Right.
that is a timely, it's effective in a sense, like it's more uh, giving space to all sorts of economics. If something interesting, something seriously done, we just kind of like give it a space so that, uh, and obviously it goes to peer review process. And if your reviewers think that it's a acceptable work, then we tend to publish that.
For everybody out there who has a paper that fits the bill, the New York Economic Review is the place for you to send that paper to,
Yeah.
putting in a plug for that. And I really like the idea that you are focusing on short form paper because
Yeah.
not every finding
Mm.
deserves a long paper, can
That's right.
have a long paper.
That's right.
So, yes, but that doesn't diminish the value of that finding.
That's right. That's right.
And
Yeah. And
exactly.
yep, yep. And then also I would like to mention that we don't have any submission fee. We don't have any publication fee. It's those who are teaching in a ASSB accredited school, these are ABDC listed journal. So there's a lot of value in terms of your professional development if you consider New York Economic Review as your one of the go-to journal to submit your scholarly work.
Well, I wish you all the best with getting lots and lots of submissions and increasing the visibility of the journal.
Thank you for the
Um,
advertisement. I appreciate this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, Looking back to all your experiences and interactions, I asked two. This is like a two-part question. If you could redo something, what would that be? And what advice do you have for early career scholars out there today?
Thank you for asking this question. So just again, I started my career in the year 2008. That was my first time full-time teaching gig as a visiting scholar. Then since 2009, I'm at Siena. So it's been 17, 18 years since I started my profession.
Hmm.
I think we emphasize a lot on networking, right? And
Yes.
yes, a lot of people do network. And I also was networking. But one of the things when I reflect on, I was not very strategic about my networks. Uh, so I think one needs to be very strategic. And the way you develop your strategy is by having conversation with some of the people who are already in the profession. It could be your advisor, it could be your more senior member, senior department. Engage them, have a conversation with them, and see how you can develop a very strategic network so that which you can rely on for your own professional growth and also the growth of the whole network. Like you are contributing in your own way to that network as well. So that's something perhaps I could have done better, but I didn't. Again, over time I learned it. That's the first thing. And second thing, as a scholar, also, especially when you are junior, it's important that, yes, you have your own specialized area, you should be
Mhm.
focusing on that, but also start working on something which is a little bit outside of your more comfort zone, right? Because sometimes those kind of work will pan out over time and can lead to some very interesting directions which
Mhm.
could be very helpful for your professional growth. But first few years, maybe you can focus on your like PhD thesis and the related work. But as you kind of like getting into, I would say, senior assistant professor level, that's when you start kind of like expanding beyond your comfort zone. And because field is evolving, things are changing fast. What's in fashion today will not remain in fashion in 10 years. And until you keep your eyes and ears open, it will be very difficult to kind of like sustain yourself on a longer term if your research is or very narrowly focused.
Mhm. You're very right there. I've had to evolve for
Mm,
reasons which are both exogenous,
mm,
outside of my control and within my control. And I think that I have survived
mm,
because of that. So I
yeah.
completely understand what you're saying there. And that thing about networking,
Mm,
I wish, and I think these days, there are mechanisms and structures in place to actually teach people how to network.
mm,
I just remember kind of, I don't know, I was in the dark. I
yeah.
had no strategy. My
Yep.
only strategy was be nice.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Because that was it was, yeah, I think the generation perhaps when we kind of like came to the profession, the things were a little different. Uh, but I think modern students are, or more recent graduates, they are doing a fantastic job. But also, you need to have a very strategic vision. Like, this is how I'm going to, because uh, somebody will be willing to help you or help you in your journey if they see that there's a kind of like pathway, right? There's a strategy that you are kind of trying to pursue. It's not about just publishing a paper. It's not about just uh, getting a reference. It's about developing those connections and relations.
That's right.
Yeah,
Because, and again, it's not even also about the here and the now that, oh, I
yeah,
need that paper.
yeah,
No, it's
yeah,
it's the long-term
yeah,
sustained
yeah,
relationship. And you are absolutely correct.
yeah.
So my to conclude, my last question for you is, what is in store for Arindam in the future? Any exciting projects? More of the same? Anything?
Definitely more table tennis.
Oh yes, oh
Table tennis
yes.
will go on. Yeah.
That's right.
I have to improve my rankings, that's for sure. But in professionally, again, like as I said, my interests are evolving.
Mhm.
So I kind of like happen to teach a lot of a money and banking class. That's so this is something I taught when I was a grad student. And when I came to Siena, started, though it's not my direct research area, but I've been teaching this class for the last 15 years. So, and more recently, I would say I'm getting more interested in more macro finance and its connection with labor, those kind of things, especially monetary policies and how it's evolving. And with all the talk that going on in the broader context, as
That's right.
especially about uh, uh, Fed's policies and how it's going to impact. And on the top of it, one interesting thing that, again, this morning I was listening to NPR. Apparently, our Social Security fund is going to go dry out by 2032. So, literally, like, and the point that the presenter was trying to make is that any senators we are choosing, they will be the policymaker deciding on this. Even the next president could be a social security president because no matter who the person is, that person has to take a call on this. So that's also something I'm getting more interested in. So it's all related to finance and especially government debt and monetary policies, social security, and also another interest that I'm developing is population because another issue that's connected to social security because US fertility rate is below replacement level, so we were making it up by through immigration, but with the immigration policy in the country, we are going to perhaps going to see a shrinkage in immigration. So how we are going to kind of like sustain the society? And we are already have case studies, right? Japan is going through this. To an extent, Russia is going through this. And so that's something I think would be a very interesting topic to pursue, especially population and
That's
how
right.
do you sustain society in a like a declining population scenario. So these are kind of like my more recent interest. Again, I'm not doing any kind of like quote unquote active research, but I'm kind of reading a lot on different things, trying to make up my kind of understanding of this subject area. And gradually I want to go into that direction.
That is very, very admirable. And I wish that at least I can say for myself, I wish I can be so effective in kind of having my research interests evolve. Like you started out as a labor macroeconomist, and now you're talking about population and media and money and banking. So that's absolutely amazing. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I learned a lot and I enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much, Arindam.
Like, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Shimantir. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
it.